Mention King Solomon, and an immediate, specific image comes to mind. He is the universal archetype of wisdom, a ruler who famously resolved impossible legal disputes, and a king who presided over a legendary era of total peace. The origin story of that era begins at the deathbed of his father, King David. In 1 Kings chapter 2, David gives Solomon his final instructions. His first mandate is theological: keep God's laws, walk in his ways, and honor the covenant to ensure a blessed kingdom. Then David issues his second mandate. He hands his son a literal hit list. In the same breath that he demands strict adherence to divine law, David orders Solomon to eliminate a specific group of personal enemies. This creates an immediate tension at the very start of Solomon's reign. The man remembered as the wisest ruler in history begins his tenure by navigating a series of high-level executions to secure his position. To understand this transition, we look at this matrix. We will conduct a moral audit of the 4 specific targets Solomon deals with in his first days in power, evaluating these actions based on absolute morality and political necessity. Auditing these targets allows us to see the mechanics of Solomon's rise. We can finally determine if his first acts were a righteous enforcement of justice or a calculated purge of his father's rivals. We begin with Target 1, Joab. David's instruction regarding his former military commander is specific. He orders Solomon to ensure Joab's blood is shed in peacetime, citing murders Joab committed years earlier. However, David chose not to execute this justice himself while he was actively on the throne. By delegating this delayed revenge to his son, he passes the moral and political weight of the execution to the next generation. This brings us to Target 2, Shimei. Years earlier, Shimei had cursed David, but David made a sworn oath, a formal, binding promise that he would never kill Shimei with a sword. David remained bound by the exact wording of that vow. To circumvent it, he instructed Solomon to use his wisdom to find a technical method to end Shimei's life without using a sword. This manipulation of language stands in contrast to the biblical standard of integrity, which requires a person's yes to be yes and their no to be no. Looking at the cases of Joab and Shimei together reveals a shared motive of political necessity. These executions close the books on inherited grudges that David had left unresolved during his own life. Solomon shows no hesitation in carrying out these orders. He accepts the morally gray requests of his father and acts as the final instrument for David's lingering grievances. Weaponizing the letter of the law to bypass its clear intent places these actions firmly within the realm of earthly statecraft. Solomon secured his power through the calculated use of legal technicalities. Next is Target 3, Adonijah, Solomon's older brother. Adonijah petitioned the throne for permission to marry a woman from the former royal court. Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, viewed the request as harmless and gave it her endorsement. Solomon reacted differently. Where his mother saw a simple domestic request, Solomon perceived a veiled attempt to establish a rival claim to the throne. Solomon responded with an immediate death sentence. He ordered his brother's execution, walking back the prior assurances of safety he had given Adonijah. We are left to weigh Bathsheba's perception of innocence against Solomon's suspicion. The text leaves it to the reader to decide if this execution was a necessary defense of the throne or a move driven by paranoia. Finally, we reach Target 4, Abiathar the priest. Abiathar had supported Adonijah's earlier attempt to take the crown. Instead of execution, Solomon stripped him of his title and sent him into exile. This marks a massive historical shift. For the first time, a king unilaterally fires a high-ranking religious figure, altering the traditional balance of power. Removing Abiathar allowed Solomon to move beyond survival, resulting in the total subjugation of religious authority under the throne. The audit is finished. Solomon unified the nation and secured his reign, but the foundation of this peaceful era is built upon blood and technicalities. While Solomon achieved undeniable success in stabilizing the kingdom, the text remains uncomfortably silent on whether these specific acts were pleasing to God. This creates a paradox. The narrative blurs the line between divine providence and the human vindictiveness required to wield absolute power. It challenges us to look closely at leadership today. When those in power claim to act on the highest moral ideals, we have to ask if they are seeking true justice or simply utilizing loopholes to satisfy their own ambitions.